Good morning and welcome. My name is Cindy Taylor. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 54th Annual Deborah Morton Convocation Ceremony. I'm the Vice Chair of the University of New England's Board of Trustees, and on behalf of the trustees, I would like to thank all of you for coming today and joining us in this wonderful, wonderful tradition. We are here to honor three outstanding Maine women. Here to receive today's awards are Michelle Hood, Patricia Ryan, and Barbara Trafton. The Deborah Morton Convocation and Awards Ceremony is an honored tradition of Westbrook College. As you will later hear, this 19th century woman, Deborah Morton, was quite progressive for her time. We hope that our students will take what they learn here and improve their surrounding communities the way that Deborah Morton Society members and our other recipients here today have done. I know you will join me in celebrating their remarkable accomplishments. It is now my pleasure to introduce the chair of the Deborah Morton Society Steering Committee, 2007 Deborah Morton Society awardee, Meg Baxter. Like all of the members of the Society, Meg has been an important part of the economic, educational, and community service worlds in Maine for all of her professional life. Currently serving as president and CEO of the Mitchell Institute, Meg has in the past served for 21 years as the president of the United Way of Greater Portland. She gives generously of herself, time, effort, and support to benefit the Deborah Morton Society Endowed Scholarship Fund at the University of New England. I would like to introduce to you Meg Baxter.
Good morning. It really is an honor to be part of this wonderful group of accomplished women, the Debbies. Each year, we're tasked with inducting new members, a job that's complicated by the many, many worthy nominees. We make sure we're considering every part of the state, and we review their varied accomplishments with admiration. We're respectful of our responsibility to live up to the life, times, and example of Deborah Morton. Most of what I'll tell you about her comes from UNE's archives. Deborah entered the Westbrook Seminary and Female College in 1876. Strict rules governed students' behavior in and out of class. A late 19th century catalog states that the seminary is not a suitable one for those who are idle, wayward, or averse to study. I would expect all of you students have passed that test. Deborah was none of those, and she graduated as valedictorian of her class in 1879, and it would take 42 more years for women to earn the right to vote. In 1884, she was appointed a teacher of grammar, rhetoric, and algebra. Her spirit is captured in an entry she made in a friend's journal. Asked to name her idea of real misery, she wrote dependence. Asked to state the fault for which she had the most toleration, she answered too much zeal. Asked to name the single entity she would like to visit above all others, she wrote utopia. For traveling companion, she chose a well-filled purse. Her intellectual pursuits were many: politics, art, language, literature, and the growth of social institutions. She was a reformer. When asked to resolve a strike based on 8 campus rebels demanding the right to travel unescorted beyond campus grounds, she sided with the rebels. And she became a firm advocate of dress reform when young ladies sought release from the confinement of long skirts and petticoats. You probably don't even know what a petticoat is, do you? She was much more than petticoats. She made 14 trips to Europe and the Middle East. She was active in the Women's Literary Union and the YWCA War Council. In the 1930s, she delivered a solemn assessment of Hitler's rise to power at a time when most people considered the Fuhrer an upstart. She was at the vanguard of women who fought for equal rights on the social, political, and economic levels. But she always came home, and thereby left her mark on generations of Westbrook women At the age of 85, 5 years before she died, she wrote that she was not rusting out. So we seek to emulate this teacher, mentor, and advocate, Ann Maynor, a woman far ahead of her time, and induct into the Deborah Morton Society women who have made outstanding contributions to their communities through exceptional leadership in the civic, cultural, and economic life of Maine. We're thrilled to welcome Pat, Michelle, and Barbara to this inspiring community of women.
Thank you so much, Meg. And I also want to welcome all of you to this wonderful annual event in the life of our university. This marks the 54th Deborah Morton Award ceremony, and I know that it will be an amazing event for all of us. I'd like to thank the Vice Chair of our Board of Trustees, Cynthia Taylor, for being here today, and also Meg for her leadership of the Deborah Morton this past year. The members of the Deborah Morton Steering Committee, as she said, really do spend countless hours thinking, reading, and really discussing the values of Deborah Morton, this amazing woman you just heard about. And we are very careful in that selection process to choose women who are exemplars of Deborah Morton and what she accomplished in her life. This year, our committee that Meg chaired included Ellie Baker, Susan Carlisle, Pat Collins, Kay Flanagan, Bridget Healy, Meredith Jones, Paula Silsby, and Patsy Wiggins. And I really thank them for their service to the university and to the Deborah Morton Society. It's an honor to be here to present these awards and be a part of this. Over 200 women in Maine over the past 54 years have been named Deborah Morton awardees. So it's a pretty select group when you think about it in that way. I would like to recognize these wonderful women for a moment here today. Would all our Deborah Morton awardees please stand and be recognized? Ladies. That's wonderful. And I don't know, Willie Bradford might get the award for coming the farthest and the most often. She is a wonderful attendee, and we're, as a past trustee of UNE, we're happy to have you here, Willie, with us today. I would also like to take a moment to think about those who have passed since our last convocation. 3 really early award winners and remarkable women that will be known to many of you: Betsann Holmes, Jane Moody, and Wilma Parker Redmond. Could we please take a moment of silence as we remember these women? They will certainly be missed by our community and by all of us. Maine has a history of women who have provided outstanding, thoughtful, courageous, compassionate leadership. And certainly the 3 women I just mentioned exemplify that. Since 1961, the Deborah Morton Society has recognized distinguished women from all fields of public service, volunteer, careers that span cultural, civic, and social causes. I hope our students here today, as young men and women, are inspired by our Deborah Morton Society members and the 3 women that we'll be honoring today. Today's awardees engender confidence in the belief that individuals can make a difference, as they certainly have for all of us in our community here in Maine. The results of what they've accomplished are certainly immeasurable, but I look forward to hearing their inspiring stories today, and I thank you for joining us in honoring them. I would now like to ask University Trustee Dan McCormick to step forward and present his Deborah Morton Award candidate.
Good morning. On behalf of the Board of Trustees of the University of New England, it is my pleasure to present the 2015 Deborah Morton Award recipient, Michelle Hood.
Okay. Yes, she has to stand and hear about herself a little bit. Michelle Hood has served as President and CEO of Eastern Maine Healthcare Systems since 2006. Prior to her current position, she served as President and CEO of the Sisters of Charity of Leavenworth Health Systems, Montana region, and President and CEO of its flagship hospital, St. Vincent Healthcare. Michelle builds partnerships that work for Maine communities, strengthening the economic and educational climate of our state. She is active with the American Hospital Association, immediate past chair of the Maine Hospital Association Board, and she serves on several community and national boards, including the University of Maine Systems Board and the VHA for the New England Board. She has received a Bachelor's of Science from Purdue University and a Master's of Science in Healthcare Administration from Georgia State University. And we would welcome hearing from you today, Michelle. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Ribbich. I am very honored to be here today and to share this experience with my fellow award honorees. I have had the privilege of living and working in the great state of Maine for almost a decade now, and although I have been told on countless occasions that it's very difficult to be a true Mainer without the genetic inculcation of generations of Maine experience, I like to think of myself as an adopted Mainer. So to be recognized by the University of New England is especially special to me. Thank you. I read a bit about Deborah Morton and thought about what life must have been like for her as she graduated as the valedictorian of Westbrook Seminary in 1879 and went on to be recognized in her role as teacher, academic leader, linguist, historian, and civic leader. Obviously, she had the female multitasking gene. Probably in many ways, she met the same challenges we encounter today, juggling multiple priorities and bumping up against status quo barriers. She also must have had tremendous intellectual curiosity to have pursued such a diversity of interest, a role model. I am flattered to join the society that bears her name. I consider myself one of the lucky ones. By serendipity and great mentorship, I have had a career that has taken me from Atlanta to Birmingham, from Louisville to Montana, and finally here in Maine. I have been privileged to work with really smart people who are called to serve their neighbors at times of great vulnerability. I have observed an explosion of science and participated actively in bringing the fruit of that science to a rapidly changing healthcare delivery model. The pace of change is accelerating for the U.S. healthcare industry, both on the delivery and on the financing side, making it a truly chaotic but amazingly energizing transformative time. I, like my colleagues, am and should be inspired by the process. In closing, I leave you with a quote from a book by Studs Terkel. I read this many, many years ago, and he's a prolific author. If you haven't heard of him, he's worth a Google. It's a book about how people feel about their work, what creates satisfaction, and in those special cases, passion in the workplace. Mr. Terkel interviewed a lady in his book, and she said that, quote, "Most people work in jobs that are too small for their spirits." I have certainly never had that problem. In the professions of healing, we are challenged to connect the person to the science, and I'd like to share a guiding message that has been true to my heart and close to me over probably the last 30 years. I have a plaque on my desk that says the following: ultimately, what really matters is a courageous spirit and a generous heart. Thank you again.
Thank you, Michelle, very much. I think that message resonates with our students. There was a survey last year that was taken nationally for students and graduates, recent graduates, who had found their work meaningful. And our UNE students actually ranked first in the nation in finding their work the most meaningful. So I do think that passion and caring for their work is part of what our students care about here at UNE, and I appreciate you sharing that quote with us and inspiring us today. And now I'd like to ask Trustee Sandy Goulden to present her Deborah Morton Award honoree.
On behalf of the Board of Trustees of the University of New England, it is my pleasure to present the 2015 Deborah Morton Award recipient, Patricia Ryan.
Wait just a moment. You can't forget the photo, yeah. Patricia Ryan served as Executive Director of the Maine Human Rights Commission from, listen to this, 1979 until 2011. During this time, she also was a member of the Joint Standing Committees of the U.S. Equal Rights Employment Opportunity Commission, and she is currently a board member and treasurer of the Maine Women's Lobby and Maine Women's Policy Center. Pat has served as chair of the Maine State Personnel Board and the Maine Commission for Women, co-chaired by EEOC Fair Employment Practices Agency's state and local programs, Reengineering Committee, co-chair of the Maine State Immigrant and Refugee Resettlement Task Force, a major job here in our state. She was a member of the International Association of Official Human Rights Agencies, a member of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development State Agency Advisory Board, and was a founding director of the Maine Women's Lobby and the Maine Women's Political Caucus. Pat was inducted into Maine Women's Hall of Fame in 2014 and was a recipient of the Roger Baldwin Award presented by the Civil Liberties Union of Maine in October of 2014. And Pat earned a bachelor's in sociology from Syracuse University as part of her education, and we're pleased to be welcoming her and honoring her today. Pat?
Thank you. President Rippich, members of the Board of Trustees, Deborah Morton Society members, fellow inductees, and other guests, I'm honored and humbled to be here today to be inducted into the Deborah Morton Society. I was struck when reading about Deborah Morton to realize that I had not known much about this remarkable woman who was in the forefront of women who fought for equal rights on social, political, and economic levels. And I was struck to realize that the University of New England, in its former iteration as Westbrook Junior College, had the vision to establish an award in her memory in 1961. 1961, before even passage of the Federal Civil Rights Act, the first law in the country that prohibited discrimination in so many areas. And now we have an award who has honored more than 200 Maine women who have made significant contributions in their fields. It makes me think again and appreciate the many, many women there are that have made such an impact in our state. Events like this are a good time for reflection, and I have enjoyed thinking about our progress in the area of civil rights over the last 50-some years. I became involved in the civil rights and social justice issues in 1974 with Lois Reckitt, a Deborah Morton Society member, when the Equal Rights Amendment was being ratified by states throughout the country. I worked here in Maine for passage with a large group of women and men and organizations. I saw what could be done with recognizing a problem, identifying a solution, and working to ensure a successful outcome. That experience led me on a path I had not intended to travel, and I have spent the last 40 years advocating for and influencing policy decisions to move people, and especially women, forward to achieve civil rights and a life with human dignity. By far, the heartbeat of my career was the 32 years I served as executive director of the Maine Human Rights Commission. In the mid-1970s, things were much different than they are now. There were few women in government or in management positions or professional positions. Women had only recently achieved legal protection from sex discrimination with passage of the Civil Rights Act. People with physical and mental disabilities were not protected under either state or federal law from discrimination. Families with children could be excluded from rental housing. Women who were pregnant could be fired from their jobs. Maine became the first state in the country to eliminate mandatory retirement. Girls became protected under the Human Rights Act so that they could play sports on teams and in venues similar to those provided to boys. And in 2005, discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation was finally prohibited. A lot happened over those next 4 decades, and I was so proud to be part of it. But it didn't happen because of one person or even a few people. One of the great things about the state of Maine and its people is the belief that among most that working together is preferable to not. Working hard for what you believe and for what you want to achieve is a Maine ethic. This not only holds true about all who are interested in the principles and focus of the Maine Human Rights Act, but in other areas as well. People doing the best in their careers, not only to advance their own missions, but to provide opportunities and advancement for others. And that is what is so wonderful about the Deborah Morton Society Awards and the women who have been recipients. One has only to look at the names and listen to some of the achievements to know that we are part of a strong tradition, ethic, and commitment to furthering the work of Deborah Morton, working on social, political, and economic levels. So let's keep it up. Together we have done a lot, but we have not done enough, and we're not done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pat. And I look at the work that you've done and a lot of the people here in this room have done. I have to tell this story. Shortly after I had moved to Maine, I was at Portland at the jetport waiting for a plane, and there was a young family sitting beside me, and they had a little boy who was maybe 6 or 7, and Susan Collins was running for re-election in the Senate. And so they were talking about her chances of getting re-elected and who she would run against, and then they were talking about Senator Snowe and the work that Senator Snowe, Olympia and Susan had been accomplishing for the state of Maine. And the little boy looked up and he said, "Mom, Mom," and she was like, "Just a minute, I'm talking." He was like, "Mom, Mom," and she turned to him and she said, "What is it?" He said, "Can a boy grow up and be a senator?" It was like wonderful. I thought, I love this state. It's a great place. I love it. And I do think we've made a lot of progress when children in Maine are asking those questions. I would now like to invite David Biondi to present our next Deborah Morton awardee candidate. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Board of Trustees of the University of New England, it is my pleasure to present the next 2015 Deborah Morton Award recipient, Barbara N. Trafton.
Hold that a minute. Barbara Trafton is currently a broker for the Maine State Real Estate Network in Auburn. She has held the position of Maine State Senator as well as State Representative and is the published author of Women Winning and How to Run for Office. Some of you may want to read that. I'm looking at our students now. Her past careers include English teacher and vice president of corporate development, so she's worked in education as well as in the business world. She has received numerous awards for her volunteer efforts from organizations including the Androscoggin Chamber of Commerce, the Androscoggin United Way, the City of Auburn, and in 2002 she was named Auburn Citizen of the Year by the Auburn Business Association. Currently, Barbara is a trustee for the Auburn Public Library and is immediate past chair of Maine's Nature Conservancy Board and the Garcelon Society of Bates College, which supports scholarships for local Maine students. She previously served as the chair of Maine's Housing and as its board director for Androscoggin Chamber of Commerce. She is a former board member of the Maine Maritime Academy, United Way of Androscoggin, Androscoggin Red Cross, and the Maine Audubon Society. Barbara received a Bachelor of Science from Wellesley College and a Master's of Science in Education from the University of Southern Maine and an MBA from Northeastern. So I now present our next awardee, Barbara Trafton.
Good morning. Over the past few months, I've been delighted to learn about the University of New England's Deborah Morton Society and to admire the long list of distinguished women in its membership. Thank you to UNE and to the Deborah Morton Society for including me in this group of Maine leaders. A week ago today, I was wearing a different hat, a bicycle helmet, as I participated in the third Bike Maine ride of 350 miles through 6 communities in our state. When we reached Bethel, we camped out for 2 days and enjoyed a so-called rest day. A group of us decided that we'd paddle 10 miles down the Androscoggin River from Gilead to Bethel. We saw eagles and herons and occasional trout rising, refreshed ourselves with dips in the water. It was an inspiring day, but it made me think back to a very different Androscoggin River. You see, I was born in Rumford, Maine, on the banks of the Androscoggin in 1949. In those days, everything was dumped into the Androscoggin River. Toxic waste from textile mills and paper companies, municipal sewage from many communities up and down the river. Central Maine Power exacerbated the pollution problem by building huge hydro dams which impounded the water and reduced the oxygen level, virtually killing all aquatic life and fish. By 1960, the Androscoggin River was rated as one of the most polluted rivers in the United States. I was 11 years old. Enter U.S. Senator Edmund Muskie, a Rumford boy, who used the Androscoggin as his inspiration to pass the Clean Water Act in 1972, close on the heels of the Clean Air Act in 1970. Senator Muskie had a brilliant vision of environmental policy that put both human health and nature as compatible. He also understood that our natural resources are our economy. Senator Muskie is one of my heroes and one of my mentors. Fast forward to another river in my life, the Penobscot, Maine's largest river. For the past decade, I served as a trustee of Maine's Nature Conservancy and had the opportunity to co-chair our recent $100 million campaign. One of our projects, along with partners, was to raise the necessary funds to purchase 3 dams on the Penobscot's main stem, remove 2 of them, and decommission a 3rd, and build a fishway, a veritable river, around the 3rd. In doing so, we opened up 1,000 miles of traditional spawning ground for 11 species of sea-run fish, such as alewives and salmon. The restoration of the Penobscot is expanding the economies of local communities, benefiting wildlife, reviving the Gulf of Maine by providing feed for ground fish such as cod, maintaining the same level of renewable energy, and restoring the cultural heart of the Penobscot Indian Nation. The Nature Conservancy is also my hero and mentor. These two rivers are important to me. Through them, I have learned humility from seeing how poorly we treat nature, and gained hope from learning how we can make amends. There's much work left to be done. A final point of inspiration that I would share with you is children's literature. In particular, a book called Miss Rumphius by Maine's author, beloved Barbara Cooney. It's the story of a woman who does three things: travels the world, lives in a beautiful home by the sea, and finally spreads lupin seeds up and down the Maine coast. At the story's end, she encourages her young niece to do the third and most important thing with the words, "Do something to make the world more beautiful." The women of the Deborah Morton Society, in their own unique ways, have met this challenge, and the world is more beautiful for their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. And I think that that sentiment really is a wonderful way to end, but I want to also ask our students to think about what you've heard today with these three accomplished women. They have found their passion, as Michelle said, in healthcare, in social justice and issues for women, and in the environment. The issues that over the span of their careers they have been working on are just as relevant to you in your future. And we are handing a torch forward. I want you to think about what your passion is, how you might change the world as you go about your career using the example of these ladies before you today. And so I congratulate all of our recipients and the membership to the Deborah Morton Society. I thank everyone for coming to our campus in this wonderful day. It's one of my favorite days of the year. I always know school has begun when we come in and are uplifted by hearing the stories of the Deborah Morton awardees. And I'll now turn the program back to the head of our Deborah Morton Society, Meg Baxter.
Did you guess I didn't know what I was supposed to say? Thank you all for coming, and we look forward to welcoming, well, you now are Debbie's. Welcome to the group, and we look forward to a wonderful lunch, and we hope you can join us, and thank you so much for coming.